was it actually like the first time you stepped onto a training ground as a manager or a head coach, speaking about a derby to begin with?
Well, the transition from player to manager is huge in terms of responsibilities. As a player, had a long career obviously, and can worry about yourself for a lot of that career. Of course you worry about the team, but daily you kind of worry about self-improvement. And to come into management, it was slightly unexpected so soon for me. And there's obviously a nervous feeling. No matter what derby, I knew that the size of the job would be big. The idea to try and get out of the Championship, going into a new club, new faces, trying to think how quickly can I get my message across to the players. And I had a meeting first day of the players at Derby, and similarly here at Chelsea, where I just tried to lay out the fact that I would be pretty open, hopefully, and the players could talk to me, but also the things that I sort of demanded and would want in terms of playing style and day-to-day ethics of how we train and work. And fortunately, we had a really good group at Derby, staff and players included, and I think we had a pretty good year, although we fell at the last hurdle.
So the difference that you found when you arrived at Chelsea, clearly you know the club, you know the training ground, you know the setup, but being the manager of a top four, an internationally famous football club, what was the big difference between that and Derby?
Well, I felt it instantly, and as you say, I had something on my side in the fact that I knew the club well. So I knew, as I drove here the first day, I knew that I would know a lot of faces. I knew kind of the ins and outs of the club. What I didn't do too much as a player was step into the manager's office. I waited to be asked in, or occasionally would tap on the door, but it wasn't regular for me. So to go upstairs and turn left as opposed to right was slightly strange and surreal. I sort of sat in the office as I got in on the first day and had a little moment to myself. But that's kind of where the sort of surreal nature of it and the emotions had to stop. I very quickly thought, I'm in work mode here, and I want to do the best I can at this club. So I used the fact that I knew some of the faces to settle in pretty quickly, but got to the job in hand. And it feels now like things have gone very quickly, but it does also feel like I've been here a long time already. So I'm determined to try and be a success.
Why did you decide that you were going to be a tracksuit head coach manager rather than a suited one?
Well, I actually haven't had any moment where I said, this is what I'll be. Last year I wore tracksuits and some cups. I wore a suit mainly for games. Unfortunately, I am slightly superstitious, so sometimes that can depend on what kind of attire I'm wearing. But this year, I know I've been wearing a tracksuit. I feel comfortable in it. On match days, you do. I'm very active, of course, sometimes on the line, but also in the dressing room and around, and I've just found it to be pretty comfortable. But not to say that I won't change that. I'm not deciding that's me for my managerial life.
Can you switch off, and if so, how do you switch off from the constant pressure of being a manager?
Yeah, it's something that I would say I can improve. My wife would probably tell you that I can improve at, because my switching off is family time. I have two daughters, slightly older, who are at school, and a baby daughter now, my third daughter, who's just over 1 year old, and obviously they're huge to me, and obviously this job takes a lot of your time and effort. So when every moment I get, I try and switch off with the family. I've got a very understanding wife who's worked herself, so she understands how driven I am in my work, and sometimes I do bring it home, but if I can, I'll put something else other than football on the TV, take the dog for a walk, spend some time with my daughters doing homework, and basically try and get away from the environment of training all the time, but it's tough.
Would there be 3 words that would describe your managerial style?
Determined, because I'm determined for improvement, and that's myself as much as the players and the squad. Which I suppose could lead you on to being a bit obsessive, and that sounds strange, but I think it's something that I had as a player. I obsessed about how I could get better. So after those 2 quite strong words, I would say calm, because I try and be calm, and I think it's important to stay level-headed in victory and in defeat, and what the players see from you daily. And I think that is kind of my nature anyway, so I'll go for those 3.
When you were in that Chelsea dressing room as a player, was it always, did you think you, out of that group, who was the most likely to become a successful coach?
No, I didn't necessarily. Certainly not successful, because when you're playing, it's such a long road, and I needed a year off when I finished. I needed to go through my coaching badges and B licence and A licence, and I needed time with the family. So as a player, as I got over 30, I started to get more interested in the idea of management and how I could affect others around me and help players and hopefully bring success in that way as a manager. But no, there were a lot of big personalities in that dressing room. There were the John Terrys and the Drogbas and the Ballacks, and you could go on. So I never felt that much and got too far ahead of myself. But it's nice to see some of those players. We have Joe Cole, Ashley Cole here working in the academy, John Terry obviously assistant at Aston Villa, and it's great to see some of that group coming through.
You've worked with some top managers. I guess you've taken a bit from all of them, but would you say there was one who inspired you more than any other? And what have you brought to that? What have you learnt yourself that you can make yourself even better?
Yeah, I mean, all of them, as you say, have helped me, for good or for bad. And when I say that, I mean things that I thought was a player that was great and I've taken on board. Some that you think, I'm not so mad on that, you also take on board in different ways. Jose Mourinho was obviously a huge influence on me in the first time he came to the club. He gave me a real uplift in confidence, more than tactics or technical stuff. It was more how good could I be and did I have the mindset to move up levels. And Carlo Ancelotti, I always found, in terms of how personable a manager could be, their relationship with you one-on-one, to try and get the best out of you, always found a bit special. So those two I tend to say a lot, but as I say, I feel bad leaving out a lot of the other managers I had because they all had positive influences in me in their own ways.
Who in the group that you're in the dressing room with now, the youngsters included, do you say maybe one day they're best set to become a coach, and do you encourage them? I know that Jose said to me that he used to encourage the players to go and do their badges even if they said they weren't interested. Do you do the same, or do you leave it to them?
I don't encourage. What I would encourage them not to do their badges, because I like them to focus on the game, and it's quite difficult. But I certainly would encourage them that when we are having meetings, which we have a lot of, and we're training and things change and we're trying different things, that they take it in and think about it, in the bigger picture, because that can certainly help you as you get more experience as a player and think about management. But it's hard to say. I mean, I've got good leaders. I've got Azpilicueta, who is a professional, and how he works is the captain, and for a reason, because he sets such a great example. So yeah, he's a football man who I would imagine would stay in the game, and Jorginho, who's recently become vice captain, and part of the reason for that from my point of view was that he thinks the game, and he's a winner. He's very forthright in how he is in the dressing room, but he's a thinker. When you change something, he wants to ask a question and always listening and asking. So I think he could have a great chance to move on anyway, because he's such a thinker. He's always taking on information. Have
you got a best mate who's another manager? Or who would you say would be the nearest to a best mate?
I've got Jody Morris, everybody knows, my assistant manager, and we're close and been close since the days that I was at West Ham youth team and he was at Chelsea youth team. So we are always now, obviously, working together, but in contact and at home on WhatsApp, whatever it may be. So we're very close. But yeah, everyone knows I'm close to John Terry from my time here. I've been to the, now I'm in the Premier League as a manager. I've been to the Premier League meetings, and people like Pep Guardiola, Pochettino, Klopp, everyone, Roy Hodgson, manager I played under, also friendly and accommodating. So they're not best mates, but there was a respect that I found really interesting and actually appreciated when I sat with all the managers. So they're not best mates, but I definitely respect them all.
Just a final thought. All players say there's nothing like playing. So now, with your experience so far as being a manager, if playing is 10, doing well as a manager, winning a game as a manager, winning things as a manager, where do you think that could be?
10. 10. I was so fortunate in my career because it was long, and I was part of a big era, particularly here, of surrounded by top players, and we won stuff. But as a manager, I get asked this a lot, obviously. I don't miss playing. I actually felt like I gave everything in my career, and the end came at the right time for me and probably everybody else. But the managing the wins and the responsibility you feel for that, for what you might have done through the week to get to that winning point, is as big, if not more, and the defeats are as hard, if not more. So it's 10 both ways.